As you might have noticed if you're a Canadian, not many of us are vaccinated against COVID-19 right now. As of this taping, a mere 2.8% of us have gotten the first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, and only 1% of us have gotten both doses. So in all of Canada, the amount of people fully vaccinated against COVID-19 is roughly equivalent to the population of London, Ontario. The Brits are now vaccinating as many as 400,000 people per day. The Americans are sticking as many arms every single day as Canada has done this entire pandemic. And Israel? Let's just say Israel might already be done with this whole COVID-19 thing. Canada is now behind more than 40 countries in terms of COVID-19 vaccinations per capita. So how did we get here? Only what may be one of our greatest public policy screw-ups of modern times. Let's go back to April of 2020. The world is still very much in the first wave of COVID-19, and governments around the world are scrambling to find some way to get back to normal. On May 6th, the government of Canada announces a deal with CanSino, a Chinese company that was developing what was then one of the world's most promising vaccine candidates. The arrangement was that Canada would conduct human trials for the CanSino vaccine, and then, once it was approved, we'd manufacture it within our own borders. But there's just one problem. When CanSino tried to send Canada its first shipments of the vaccine, it was arbitrarily blocked at the border by Chinese authorities. Why? Probably retaliation for Canada's arrest of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou for extradition to the United States. As a result, it wasn't until August 5th that Canada could finally announce a contract with Pfizer and Moderna, makers of the two most widely used vaccines. The Canadian government has weirdly refused to publicize their contracts with these companies, but what's emerging is that we are definitely not at the front of the line for these shots. But wait, there's more! Evidence is continuing to emerge that Ottawa repeatedly turned down domestic offers for vaccine production. Nuvax approached the federal government in mid-2020, promising that they could be cranking 1 million doses out of their Montreal facility by December. The feds ignored them and decided to instead center all of Canada's vaccine production at an under-construction government facility that won't be completed until next year. Or there's Calgary's Providence Therapeutics, who had a vaccine candidate that was showing early success in mice. They petitioned the federal government for support to bring it to clinical trials in May, but they got no answer as well. Ever since this pandemic began, COVID-19 has cost 1,800 Canadian lives per month and at least $500 million per day. We're so far behind the rest of the developed world that as of right now, it looks like we won't achieve mass vaccination until 6 months later than everyone in Europe and the United States. And when you look at countries that have spent the most on addressing this pandemic, Canada is in first place. There's some debate over how much Ottawa is responsible for our horrific vaccine rollout, but when you spend more money than anyone else and end up in a situation where you'll be experiencing death and economic collapse for 30 weeks longer than any other country with similar resources, I think it's fair to call that a failure.